Chapter 8. A Spotter. As a child, I was told vivid stories about the Civil War in which my paternal grandfather fought on the Union side. In junior high school, a Civil War veteran spoke at an assembly. At that time, the war between the states had been over for more than 50 years, but every parade featured Civil War survivors. The Spanish-American War was still very fresh in the minds of Americans. I frequently heard the battle cry, "Remember the Maine!" And while I heard wonderful tales of Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders, it was history of something in my past, but did not happen to me directly. In 1917, when I was a freshman in Oakland High School, the United States entered World War I. In chorus, our teacher, Miss Kedro Levansky, played the piano while all of us sang the songs written expressly to bolster the spirits of Americans. "Over there, for the Yanks are coming. It's a long way to Tipperary. Johnny, get your gun, take it on the run. Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. My buddy, pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile." November 11th, 1918 saw the signing of the armistice, ending World War I. My mother heard the news and rushed to tell my father. When he heard, he grabbed the revolver he kept under his pillow, jumped out of bed and raced out to the back porch, and there jubilantly emptied his gun, shouting all the while. A few months later, when the regiments returned home, those who had escaped the slaughter, Oakland had a grand parade down Broadway. Thousands lined the streets to greet our doughboys. The formation of the regiments eloquently showed those who did not return. A space was left in every line in the formation to indicate a casualty. It is a memory that I shall never forget. In 1941, on December 7th, when we heard through the radio static that the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor, Burton woke the children to tell them of the sad news. They all began to cry because they were frightened. World War II began, and I remember it well. Evidence that the United States was at war came December 12th at the high school gym where a capacity crowd had gathered to witness the school play. At 7:45 p.m., all lights went out up and down the Pacific coast. The play cast relaxed on the stage behind closed curtains. On the floor, the crowd was nervous and restless, especially when they discovered that armed soldiers guarded all exits and allowed no one to leave. Then it was that I took charge, and enlisting the help of several people I knew, said together, "Let's sing." And that we did. Every camp song, every patriotic song, and every spiritual. The crowd quieted, and after what seemed an interminable time, the play began at 11:35 p.m. As the crowd went down the hill to their homes, they discovered that all headlights on automobiles were covered with dark blue cellophane. Homeowners could not turn on their lights at night until each window was covered with the blue cellophane. Those of us, the Home Guard, took courses in first aid, so we were prepared to take part at any time in a medical unit. We women met weekly and cut and folded bandages as we talked about our missing men and women. As in World War I, there was absolute unity throughout the country from December 7th to the end of the war. There was an entertainment center in the basement of the stone church where the boys on leave could dance and visit with the girls. However, I felt the most important service to the men in uniform was held at the old Rostel building on Sacramento Avenue. There, homemade sandwiches, cakes, and pies, plus coffee and milk were provided for the boys from the troop trains. The trains stopped in Dunsmuir for perhaps a half hour. The boys were given leave to go have some good food, beverages, and a visit. No charge, of course. When the train whistle blew for its departure, every soldier, often with a half-eaten piece of pie clutched in his hand, ran back to the train. We all knew that the trains were headed for Seattle or San Francisco, points of embarkation to the war fronts. We women waved to the boys as the train pulled away. With tears in our eyes and a catch in our throats, we prayed for their safe return. During those years, 1941 to 1945, all fun activities were war effort-oriented. For example, a pitch toss was held at the old Rostel building. In the back of the room was hung a large caricature of the Japanese warlord Tojo. Everyone was asked to bring Japanese china to be used as ammunition to pitch or toss at the picture of Tojo at 25 cents a throw. It was all smashed, of course. Refreshments were also sold. The money was given to the Red Cross or Salvation Army. Many beautiful pieces of china were destroyed, but it was done with involvement and fervor. This seems strange and rather sad now, for I have collected porcelain cups and saucers for most of my adult life, and I am very sensitive to the beauty and quality infused in these objects. One must live this to understand, for in the frenzy and passion of wartime, our own priorities are dramatically reordered. Burton was too old to be taken into the military service in World War II, but he was appointed an air raid warden for a specific area of Dunsmuir. Air raid drills were held a number of times in town during the war years, and it was during these drills when the town grew in stature. It changed from a friendly little town to a military fort of sorts with small outposts around town. My son, Bobby, worked with Burton as his assistant and would carry information between outposts. These were elaborate and well-orchestrated drills, and they were taken very seriously by all the inhabitants of Dunsmuir. On a happy note, for this small mountain community, the drills were the closest it came to being directly involved in the fighting of this war. While Burton was called a warden, I carried the title of airplane spotter. My good friend Eleanor and I became airplane spotters, and once a week she would drive us to an empty field alongside the highway in Castella, 5 miles south of Dunsmuir. In one corner of the field was a wooden tower with many stairs. We would climb to the top and spend the day in that small space. Our job was to identify any airplanes that would fly overhead within our field of sight. We would call in this information to a district office. There were not a lot of planes that flew over that part of Northern California, but when we did spot one, the difficult part of the job was identifying the kind and type of plane. It was that information, as well as the general direction of the flight, that we had to call in. A number of times I brought my 3 children along, and they spent the day playing in the field below where I could easily watch them. Sometimes they would pick wild blackberries which grew around the edges of the field. Performing these spotter duties helped me to feel like I was a contributing member of the war effort. Then the war was over. Alice Jane and I were in San Francisco. From our hotel window, we watched the celebration. Wall to wall, the street was filled with jubilant celebrants, soldiers, sailors, airmen, women, and girls. There were no strangers that day. Hugging, kissing, wild dances, just joy and relief. Returning home that weekend, I gathered together the choirs of all the churches and the mother singers to be the core of a big victory celebration. The California Theater was packed with people who needed to rejoice again. Everyone sang the national anthem with fervor and pledged allegiance to our flag. Other patriotic songs were sung as I had never heard them sung before. Someone spoke briefly, I do not remember who. As the final number, this impromptu choir sang with their very souls the lyrics of Rudyard Kipling in the stirring song, "Lest We Forget." Time moves so fast, and only 5 years after the end of World War II, the Korean War began, and it was on Alice Jane and Bob's wedding day, June 25th, 1950. My son, Robert, was drafted into the Army after he had graduated from college. By then, the Korean War was moving into peace talks, so even though he was stationed in Japan and spent some time in Korea, he was not really in harm's way. At the end of his 2-year tour of duty, he returned home on a troop ship. Through my nephew, Donald Sproul, who was a radio ham, I learned of the ship's arrival time and place. It was very exciting to be at the San Francisco port to greet Bobby when he disembarked from that huge troop ship. A week later, he was discharged from the Army. I have not been as directly involved with the wars and skirmishes that have followed. Although starting with the Vietnam War, it is brought into your home via television every single day, so it is very difficult, if not impossible, to distance yourself from those struggles. Now there is so much in your face that one cannot escape having emotional feelings about what is going on. To lose so many young men and women is devastating to me. At the same time, I have a certain kind of detachment because I am not physically involved as I was during World War II. though I must temper that by saying to be at the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., and to witness a veteran weeping at the wall can only break your heart. 9/11 happened, and we were all emotionally involved immediately. The feeling was not unlike Pearl Harbor all those years ago. Dealing with terrorists is one thing, but finding them is quite another. This scenario reminds me of one of the family walks we used to take when I was a child. On this particular day, Mother had baked a chocolate cake with white icing over the sides and top, a real beauty. When we returned from our walk, we eagerly awaited a piece of cake. Mother looked at it and cried out, "There are ants all over the icing! Wait, I'll scrape off the icing and we can have the cake inside." Then Mother cut a piece of the cake and began crying, "It is alive with ants on the inside." I am very supportive of the war on terror. It wasn't long, though, before that battle disappeared into the background when we attacked and went to war with Iraq. In a matter of days, we went from being the largest bastion of freedom in the world to being the most feared country in the world. I feel bereft and helpless. Dum-da-dum-da-dum. The loom sounds like marching feet for a few moments, but it is the sound of the shuttle moving back and forth with precision and rhythm, back and forth as these darker images work their way into the major fabric. Dum-da-dum.